You know, hunting locations and stands sure get some funny names, from the skunk hole to the killing tree to the creek bottoms. All of them have gotten their name one way or the other, and sometimes the legends and the lore and the stories behind them kind of take on a life of their own. And one of my favorite areas at our deer lease outside of Bracketville and Del Rio is a place we call the Middle Field. No other reason we call it the Middle Field than we cleared it of brush, all a bunch of mesquite and weesatch and little, typical Southwest Texas brush that was there, and tried to create food plots. And creating a food plot in that part of Texas, if you, as you know, or seen the stories that we share about droughts, well, it only works about once every 2 or 3 years that we actually get a solid food plot. But it still became the Middle Field, partly because the main road, the middle road, ran right through the middle, and it just kind of took on that name. And now it has its own stories behind it. I mean, it's 20 years ago when we first started setting up this area, and it's about probably 3.5, 4 acres of brush that we've cleared. When you look to the north, northwest, northeast areas, there's big mesquite flats, big older mesquites in there, great bedding area, kind of a little bit of a wet weather creek bottom in there at times. And then when you go back to the south side of it, you really run into the same type of a look, except you get into a few more little ditches and drains that'll sometimes hold water. And those are, once again, great bedding areas. We don't ever go into those areas. They're kind of set off to their side, so unless we're tracking a deer or we're hunting a turkey maybe in the spring, those are areas that we basically just leave alone. And the water source for that area, we've got a wet weather pond not too far up from it, and then there's a water trough that we actually call the skunk hole that's a few hundred yards away as well. So it's just a very centrally located area that we've kind of crafted and created and built over time.
One of the keys in designing a viable hunting area is offering options. Oats and soybeans are effective ground cover, but in a drought-prone region, supplemental feeding is a must.
Well, we created a free choice feeding program using Record Rack Antler Plus primarily some time ago. This particular feeder pen, we keep it very well fenced off. It's basically a hog-proof fence, and we've cut a few little jump holes into it. It's got a 2,000-pound feeder that we fill up about once every 3 to 4 weeks, get a lot of game that comes through it. We also have another area that we kind of move around based on the conditions, where we have a couple of your typical, timer feeders. They go off several times a day, attract a lot of different game, and we keep those sometimes unfenced and sometimes fenced, just basically depending on how bad the hogs have gotten and what kind of livestock are in the area. But both of those create a great place for the deer and other wildlife. Aoudad, we've got free-ranging aoudad, we've got free-ranging axis, free-ranging red deer, and other species that kind of come through that area. And they basically got a buffet that's been created along with the Middle Field and the bedding areas that keep a lot of things living in that area.
The ranch is a low-fenced operation. Animals are free to come and go. And thanks to the number of exotic game ranches in the region, there's a fair amount of not native game species to provide year-round opportunities. This red stag, one of many on the ranch, wandered onto the property 8 years ago. Kevin has had an eye on him for several seasons before finally getting the go-ahead. After chasing him around the ranch for the last week, Kevin has him patterned and in his sights.
Okay, I don't know what to tell you. We've hunted, I guess, 8 or 9 days. We've seen them 2 or 3 times in this field. They have been all kinds of spooky. We've seen the hinds come out with their babies, and he's come with them. Today he comes out by himself. Instead of working to them, he comes over this way, and he stands right in front of me at probably 20 yards, 22 yards, head on. Free range, Texas, red stag, right here. What do you think?
That's one heck of a stag, and we're just getting started. We're at the ranch in southwest Texas. This is brush country. Thousands of acres of mostly low-fence ranches stretching from San Antonio to the borderlands of the Rio Grande. This week, we're taking a look at the ranch's middle field, First cleared some 20 years ago, a natural food plot was the first ad, followed by a strong supplemental feeding program with record-rack nutrition. Now, the field is one of the favorite spots on the ranch due to its easy proximity and the sheer amount of game it attracts.
And we've hunted with rifles out of the big box blinds. We've hunted out of ground blinds. We put pop-ups up. We've had tripods up. We've basically hunted around that middle field any way that you possibly can at one time or other, because it's just a game-rich environment, both with the bedding areas, all the feeding programs, when we do get a food plot to come up, and just the amount of game that comes through that area.
This field has seen it all, from pistol hunts to crossbows. With fixed box blinds in place, there's also a couple of tree stands and a well-brushed-in muddy pop-up blind that can move throughout the season.
Thing about the middle field, you always got to keep in mind, and I always tell people, is there's a lot of does there. So when those does, start to come in heat and the rut's kicking off, you don't ever know what's going to show up there. We've got deer coming from all over, all the neighbors' properties during that time of the year, and chase those does around. And these may be deer we have no knowledge of, no history with. They may show up for 2 or 3 days chasing does, fighting other bucks, and then they may be gone. So when you get in that situation, in that particular stand, if a deer gets your heart beating, you better take a shot.
The storied middle field has been the site of some of the ranch's best hunts and biggest heartbreaks. It was peak rut in mid-December a couple years ago when Yamaha's Steve Nessel had a big 8-point in bow range. Drawing back, he waited for the buck to get fully broadside.
You're good.
I don't see any sign, so that's not a good thing. We'll see if we find the arrow, what's on it, but I'm not feeling very good about any of this right now, to be honest with you. There's an arrow. Mr. Wade's not gonna like to see that. That's super clean. Like, did I miss him?
Looking back at that shot, frame by frame, hearing the bow, the buck flinched, ducking at the last moment. You can see the arrow come in from the left, and without penetrating, it deflected off the buck and into the brush behind. Frustrating for the hunter, but a clean miss.
There's nothing. There's hair and a little bit of meat up top. It's clean. It is super clean.
And it was just last season, on another side of the field, when Wade had a monster 10-point step out.
Hunting in the rut anywhere is both exciting and challenging. The rut can be very frustrating. You've got a kind of a resident area that a lot of deer stay in, and then you've got what I call roamers or, movers. They cover a lot of ground. They may spend their summer and early fall in one area, but then, once they shed their velvet, everything changes and they go to parts unknown. And if they survive the hunting season, they come back and you're like, where did this deer go? What was he doing? And some of them just become ghosts and memories, but it's amazing to me how far a lot of them move. And when you get a chance to move in on a deer during the rut that's showing up, a lot of times it's because he's got a doe and he's captivated or he's working that area to chase all the does.
Oh my God, shot over.
Again, the buck ducks, and you can see the arrow deflect.
Oh my God, shot over.
After I took that shot, Jeff's like, man, your bow sounded weird. I think he was trying to make excuses for me, but man, I just whiffed. I whiffed. I totally blew the shot. I totally choked it. It wasn't equipment area. My bow didn't hit anything. Nothing failed. The only thing that failed was buck fever got me, and I just totally whiffed. And I love that still about hunting, that misses they're still gonna happen. 45 years of hunting, man, I mean, actually a little bit more than that. A miss is a miss. I'd rather miss really bad than just, make a shot that was marginal and wound that deer and spend a lot of time looking for it, knowing that animal's hurting. So, man, I'm glad I missed bad. If I can say anything about it, I missed bad. I missed really bad. Aging a deer is something that has become very popular in the last few years, and it's a big challenge. I think a lot of people probably don't see enough deer in all the different age classes to even really understand what they're looking at. So they've got to be taught online, going to YouTube, looking at forums, looking at different articles, and all of that's pretty valuable. That's what we're shooting this video about as well. For me, when it comes to aging a deer, one of the first things that I try to look at is basically to try to keep it simple. I've divided it up into 3 categories nowadays because it's really difficult out in the field to know exactly the age. Now, I used to think I could do that, but as I've gotten older, I realize I'm not near as smart as I used to think I am. So I use kind of 3 different gaps there. 1 to 3, I call that an immature deer. 3 to 5, 5.5, I call that a middle-aged buck. Over 5.5, that's an over-the-hill, fully mature deer. Now, for me, when I look at an immature buck, that 1 to 3-year-old class of deer, they're very thin looking. Their faces are long, their legs are long. Everything about them it just looks young, the way they move, the way they interact with everything. And especially when you can get other deer around them, you can begin to get a breakdown of their sizes. When you get to that next category of the 3.5s to 5.5, that's where it can be a little more challenging, and that's where the seasonal changes in body condition can really play a role. First off, let's look at that seasonal change. As they come out of the summer, they're starting to shed their velvet, they're beefing up for the rut, they all look big and bulky. Think about a big middle linebacker on a football team. They're stout looking. Everything about them is solid. And then as the season goes on, they begin, because they're a lot of times the most active age class in the rut, they begin to lose weight. Well, this is where people can have a hard time identifying certain deer, and one thing I always encourage is using trail camera surveys, having your trail cameras out, learning the different looks of that deer, learning his antler characteristics will really help pay off to help identify that deer so that when he loses 20 or 30 or 40 pounds during the rut, you're gonna know which deer that is. Now, as you get to that over-the-hill class that I like to break it down, 5.5 and older, that's a fully mature deer. You're gonna see a little more sagging around there. You're gonna see little wrinkles down around their jawline, around their ears and things like that. Their hips are gonna be very full, very thick. Their legs are gonna look short. A lot of times you'll hear people talking about, you'll see that sag in their back. That's definitely prevalent in some. But you also will see some of those really old deer actually begin to lose weight as they get older, and it can make them a little harder to age. So aging a deer, it's a great thing to learn how to do. It adds another little twist and more fun to your hunting, but it's not an end-all be-all, and you're probably gonna make a few mistakes, and that's okay. At least you were out deer hunting.
First cleared some 2 decades ago, the middle field has filled a lot of freezers over the years. Season after season, we've seen our share of successful hunts, along with a few heartbreaks. We watched earlier as Wade shot over a big 10-point. Returning to the same blind a week later, he's brought the Umarex Air Saber.
You know, coming back to that stand and getting to be able to get set back up after all the floods and the rain and the stuff that we had gone through while we were hunting there. I mean, I'm sinking that one day. I decided that I was gonna self-film a hunt with the Air Saber, and I had actually gone down and kind of halfway set up my stuff in there. You know, everybody else was busy that day, and I thought, man, I'm good. I'm just gonna chill out over here, and I'm gonna have a nice, relaxing hunt, maybe whack some pigs or whatever. And as I kind of got set up in there, boy, I mean, the conditions were just right. It's that time of year in December in that part of Texas where anything can happen. And thankfully for me, man, it wasn't long until I just started having action. If you've never hunted with an Umarex product, whether it's an air rifle or an air bow, you're really missing out on another cool way to hunt. You know, the 50 caliber Umarex hammer, I've had a lot of experience hunting with it. The Air Saber, I've had a lot of experience hunting with it. It is deadly accurate. And, you know, in a self-filming situation like I was able to really get in there and get comfortable and dial everything in. And, you know, when that buck came across that field, I was just like, this is gonna happen. Smoked him, smoked him, smoked him, smoked him. That's so awesome, so awesome. That's like the third or fourth time I've encountered that buck, and this morning he came in here perfect and he cut a call. There's beautiful footage come in, but he was quartering to me and I didn't like the shot. This evening I got in here super early with the hopes of seeing him. We haven't seen him really in the evenings. He always exits the field going this way. And I sit there and I watch this doe kind of raise her head and look that way, and I'm kind of peek through the mesh. I love this muddy blind here. I've got brush on it. You can see through this mesh and I can see it. I was like, oh God almighty, I think that's him. And I just hit record. That's the type of shot I love. The shot before with my compound bow, total whiff. The shot with this, man, I drove it perfectly through. And the deer went down in sight, didn't suffer at all, filled the freezer, made some great memories. I mean, that's blowing through everything. He was quartering, you know, a little bit towards me, legs were back. I mean, just blasted through it right away. I mean, it just went out through it, nothing flat. Taken a lot of deer in my life, and every one of them still fun, still special, still gets you excited. That's one of them old Ceniza Ridge Running Desert, Bracketville, Del Rio part of Texas bucks that we so fondly like, and great G2s. This one's bladed right here. Kind of has that tight come in look on his main beam, super good brow tines. We've been in about a three and a half year drought in this part of the world, so we spend a lot of time working and feeding, and we pour that record right to them to keep them there, because I can tell you, if you didn't in these conditions here, you wouldn't see tines like that. And you got to let them get older. I mean, you look at the stain, the forehead here and everything. This is a 4 to 5 year old deer, and you know, I call 1 to 3s immature, 4 to 6s being mature in this part of the world here. And that's a good old low fence Southwest Texas buck right there. As I look at the middle field, man, the memories that we've made there, from turkey hunting to kids hunting to big deer to first deer and all of it, it's when I put that deer, you know, on the grill and we're cooking it, or I hang that head in my shop, it's gonna be one that I can look at and think about nearly 20 years of memories tied to that spot. And to me, that's one thing that is so cool about deer hunting, is all the memories that you can build when you get a spot in a stand that you put that much time into.
Well, that does it for this week on the Yamaha Whitetail Diaries. A big thanks to our friends over at Umarex Air Guns, and also to Record Rack and their supplemental nutrition program. And as always, whether your needs are utility or recreational, Yamaha has an ATV or side-by-side to suit the job. Find out more at YamahaMotorsports.com. Keep up with the Yamaha Whitetail Diaries on social media. We're pretty easy to find. We'll see you next time, right here on the Yamaha Whitetail Diaries.